How's everyone doing today? Hope everyone's having a good day. I got a lot to go, of course. Right when I start, my dog wants to go out. He's gonna have to wait tonight, so I got a lot to go over here. I'm gonna try and be a little quiet. I'm not gonna get super into this one, but it's starting. Everybody, the collapse is starting. They're starting to admit everything we've been talking about. The large banks are in trouble. Powell's trying to fight for it as hard as he can now. He's trying to change the rules. We start to get a little more information piece by piece. But let's start off with AMC here. So a lot of people keep asking me about AMC's price, when to expect movement. Again, guys, I don't think we're going to see much movement until May. But just a quick update, we're at 1.289. I expect us to finish the quarter, at about 1.618. Still expect that one more capital raise, and after that, like we said, from May on, nothing but good news for AMC. Now, one thing I wanted to get into here for AMC as well is they're now showing the Olympics. He said he wanted to get way more into sports. He's trying to actively get licensing deals for a major sport, so I'm assuming it's NFL. Could be basketball because he does have his ties with, the 76ers, but I believe it's going to be football. And another thing that they're doing now as well is they're showing UFC 300. So they are showing UFC fights, and one of the things I hope that AMC looks into is, it doesn't have to be like wrestling, just their big events like WWE, maybe show a WrestleMania. Something like that on a big screen, I think would attract people. Any kind of sports, any kind of content that we can get into until 2025, 2026, and into May, it is all great ideas, but I think that that's something that they should look into as well. Now, one of the things, before we get into this graph here, Paramount said that they're going to also be releasing Star Trek. And one of the things that AMC just got done talking about is they're going live now on their Zoom meetings. Now, I don't think this Zoom meetings is going to be like this game-changing thing or this groundbreaker. I don't think it's going to be this mass revenue stream. But one of the things that this does is it grows a partnership here with Zoom. And this leads to an amazing idea. And I really, really, really think this is something that AMC should pursue. Now, if we partner with Zoom like we did even more, what we can do is add them or get them involved in the distribution type deal. Now, for concerts, imagine if at the Taylor Swift concert, if they would have been able to ask Taylor Swift questions. Imagine if you would do, when you talk to Taylor Swift, hey, you're going to have to answer questions for 15 minutes. It's going to be 15 theaters connected on a Zoom call. You're going to have to do that for 5 days, for 1 week, 5 days. 50 theaters, 55 theaters, 60 theaters, whatever they want to agree to. And a lot of people think that could get chaotic, but it's like it would be easy to control with Zoom. The guy who are controlling it, you would have obviously somebody controlling the Zoom call. They're able to, if a theater is getting out of control, you can disconnect them from the call momentarily until they can get the theater under control. You can mute that theater. There's a whole bunch of ways you can control it without the theater themselves, having to control everything and it get out of hand. But it can be something where they could charge a lot more for tickets. Now, this doesn't just have to be with, with concerts. You could do this with movies as well. Now, with superhero movies, a lot of people, like Star Trek as an example, a lot of people would love to talk to the writers, the producer. They would love to talk to the actors. Maybe you could get a deal with them as well for certain showings. Now, this would give AMC an exclusive thing, something you can only get at AMC. This is something that could separate you from all the other theaters. It could make you an exclusive thing. Now, I think that's a great idea. Maybe you guys in the chat, I don't know what you guys think about that, but I think that could be an amazing idea. Down the road, I doubt you could get it, but like I said before, it'd be sweet if you could, watch an NBA game and talk to the player of the game or something, or, something of that type of nature through a Zoom call. But just wanted to show you guys that quick. They're showing Spider-Man 2 now, Shrek 2. They're now releasing that in April. I told you guys April is going to be kind of a slower month here. There's not much content in there. There's not that much new releases. Ghostbusters, I think, is going to give us another jump here at the end of the year, but I don't think it's going to give a super boost into into April. But the next 2 months in that quarter are some of the best in the entire year, and it will definitely make up for that. So it's not that big a deal. Now, I'm hoping Civil War does a lot better than people think. I hope it does a couple $100 million, because a lot of people could relate to that movie. You know, what's going on in our country, the stress, a lot of people can definitely see something like this. I could see Civil War doing a lot better in the numbers than what they're expecting. But again, I don't see April being this crazy month. So I don't see, like I said, they're going to hold the stock price down here for a little bit, because again, they don't want us to do that one last capital raise before everything completely turns around for the industry and the company, which is right around the corner. Now, one of the things I skipped over here was Peter Hahn's graphs. It shows AMC's financials over the years from 2020 to 2023. As you guys can see, they're continuously kicking people out. You're getting content back, and total revenue is growing every year. Gross profits is growing every year. Food and beverage is growing every year. Admissions are growing every year. Operating costs, EBITDA, net debt is going down. A lot of people are talking about the debt coming up. When AMC ends up ever getting to that point in 2026, they will just restructure the debt. It's not going to be that big of a deal. Let's just move on here a little bit now. But like I said, with the AMC, people are talking about AMC and the price. Like I said, we're going to hover around here for a little bit, but do expect one more capital raise. And then from there, after beginning of May, it will be nothing but good news, good news, good news, good news. And I'm hoping he releases alcohol here pretty soon, because if he's trying to get into sports, like this and get into UFCs with your own brand of beer, I mean, that would be a huge revenue generator. So I'm hoping he gets that in before, we end up getting a partnership with NFL or with NBA that he says he's currently working on. Sorry. Now, I want to talk to you guys about some stuff here, because I'm sitting here watching a pattern, and every time these guys don't get their way, they just sue the SEC. Hedge fund industry group is now suing the SEC over Treasury market dealer rule. Of course, big old Ken Griffin, he's in the head of this, just like he's in the head of all these new things that we're going to get into. I want you guys to understand what Ken Griffin is doing. I want you guys to see it, because he's doing some things in the background that a lot of people are not paying attention to. Now, if you look into this, they're suing him over having to report for Treasury. They don't want to have to be considered. They just passed this law. I just told you guys they were not going to like this, because this is more reporting. This is more areas where they're getting away with loopholes, gray areas. Well, now they're going to have to start reporting this. They're cracking down on this. You cannot fuck around with treasuries. Well, they're now suing the SEC for this. They're also now going to sue the SEC over the WhatsApp probe. Now, if you guys remember, the SEC was suing these guys, or was continuously fining these guys. And now they want to change rules with the WhatsApp, because these guys don't have to report this. And what they're doing is using WhatsApp. And they're using these things like Snapchat that will delete your message. And they're giving insider information left and right. And they're getting charged with this left and right, because that's what every one of these guys are doing. What they'll do is they'll have a buddy who will start up at a new firm. And then they'll sit there, and somebody will work at Citadel. Somebody will work at a market maker. And that person will be giving out information on the WhatsApp. And then the person at the new firm that they're a partner with, that suddenly they'll leave right away after the firm, after they get a ton of insider information for a while. They build it all up, and then they go start their new firm. And then they got a huge head start. Well, just so you guys understand how big of a deal this was, it was $8.2 billion. Over the past 3 years, they have fined Wall Street banks, just Wall Street banks alone, $2.8 billion for giving out fucking insider information, doing this illegal practice. 2.8 billion in fines. Of course, jpmorgan's is at the top of, towards the top of the list at 200 million, and Bank of America had to pay 225 million in fines for this. Now, remember, once again, every time we talk about crime, the number one or number two contributor is always JP Morgan. One of the things I want to show you guys really quick here, and I want you guys to understand the scam that's happening, and Ken Griffin and what he's doing in the background, and they're losing control. And what do you do when you lose control? When you're running out of options, you want to buy the way that information is received. You want to control the information that is getting out there. I am sure you guys all heard about Google and how Google was had 41 election interferences or whatever. Hold on, Google. It was 41 times or something. Hold on here. Google has interfered in elections 41 times over the last 16 years. We already know that Facebook is doing it as well. So, when you're running out and you're going to lose something, you got to control the narrative. You got to go out. You got to buy the way information is spread. Now, I want you guys to understand the scam. And I called this scam out. And Ken Griffin's involved. Hedge funds are involved. This Munchkin guy's involved. This is the scam that they're doing. When you're running out of time, you go, all right, they spread things through TikTok. They spread things through Twitter. Ken Griffin already has a stake in Twitter. He obviously has control in what is spread a little bit. They hired a WEF person. We all see Twitter is completely censored. You see information that spreads for a little bit and suddenly it'll lose likes, it'll lose retweets, it'll get lost in the shuffle, or just suddenly won't get any views at all. People say they didn't see it. People say they don't see you for a while. You'll get shadow. It's all still there. It's not like Elon bought it and the shit went away and it was fixed. No, I to this point feel like it's just as bad, if not worse, to be honest with you. Well, here's the scam they got going on, because like I said, what do you do when you're gonna lose? You gotta buy the information. Citadel Air, appreciate that, my friend. Citadel Air was the owner of that puppy that we helped out, everybody. Thank you so much for helping that puppy get his cancer treatments. That was amazing. I love you guys so much. I love when we can help out dogs. Like I said, I'm a huge person for dogs. Have a huge compassion for them. So anytime we can save a puppy, let's go. But here's the scam that's going on here. So these guys went ahead and did a $1 billion deal with New York Bancorp. They went ahead and bailed them out, and everybody was like, oh yeah, no worries. And they bought shares at $2 a share, basically. They got warrants. They basically raped the bank in the deal. Now, people are going, why would you do that? Here's how you do it. Here's the scam, and here's what's going on. Why would you want to buy it in a bank who's going to implode? They're going to implode. $1 billion infusion is not going to save that bank. Not at all. Now, why the hedge funds did this is for two reasons. If somehow the government bails them out, or if somehow some infusion comes and they miraculously get bailed out, it looks like they're going to, make some kind of quick recovery for a moment. Stock price might jump up. Their warrants will hit and they win. Or, worst comes to worst, this is what they do now with the scam. This bank is going to implode. Now, let me show you something. Now, remember how they got $1 billion infusion? Over 4.165 billion has left the bank in customer deposits. Do you think that $1 billion is going to matter when billions and billions and billions are leaving? No. It's a sinking ship. It's a dying ship. Why they would invest that makes no sense. Or does it? What is the other reason they would buy this? Well, he just announced it to the world yesterday. This was 4 days ago. Justin, here's your crime. Munchkin, the same guy who just bails out Bancorp. They ban TikTok from the United States and say you need to sell it to an American-based company. Here comes Munchkin in for the savior. I'm putting a group together and we're going to buy TikTok. Well, exactly like Dario says here, and exactly like I called. I go, hey, you guys, you know exactly who's going to end up getting involved and is going to save New York Bancorp. What do you know? Here comes Ken Griffin, his buddies, and his hedge fund buddies, and Munchkin once again. What are they trying to do? They're trying to use customer deposits to buy TikTok. Because if the bank goes under and those insurance aren't there and the FDIC bails out all those people, they don't give a fuck anyways, do they? If the bank goes under, it's no longer their problem anyways. You see what I mean? It's a win-win-win. But yet now what they can do is use the customer deposits in that bank, buy TikTok, control the information through TikTok, let the bank explode, let all that crime go away with the bank of them using customer deposits to buy TikTok. They obviously want to buy TikTok pretty bad and control the information, and they want Ken Griffin to be involved in doing that. So Ken Griffin will have a stake in Twitter. Ken Griffin will have a stake in TikTok. So when you're losing, when the crash comes, when everybody's looking for who to blame, and the information is mainly spread through TikTok and Twitter, and you own both of them and you control both of them, and you're the person who's committing the crimes, what are you going to do? You're going to censor every bad information that was set out about you. Do you understand what I'm saying? MC, thank you very much. I appreciate that. We got a little bigums on the way, so I really appreciate that. Diapers are always appreciated, my friend. But this is what you do. You control the narrative because here you go. You're going to lose, so you want to make sure that everybody knows that it wasn't your fault. And let me show you, because I'm going to show you they're doing that currently right now with inflation and Bitcoin, and they're blaming Bitcoin, and it's hilarious what's happening. So right now, hedge funds are trying to control the narrative for when this crash comes, because everyone's going to point their fingers at them this time. Everybody's more educated. So what you do is you make sure you limit the education now being spread. That is your last chance. Going off of that, I want you guys to understand some crime that just happened once again by jpmorgan. You have Ken Griffin now trying to buy TikTok, Twitter, control information, and in the meantime, you have jpmorgan doing some of the most illegal stuff going on. They just got served a cease and desist order. They're getting in trouble by the comptroller. This is now beyond the reach of the SEC. I know a lot of people think that they just paid this fine and it stops here. But when you get to the comptroller level, you're going to reach it some more penalties. So it doesn't just stop here. But I want you guys to understand what's going on here, because the media blew over a lot of stuff, of course, because they control the media, just like I told you. When you're the villain, you're always going to decriminalize your crime as much as you possibly can and try and make it relatable to people so they sympathize why you committed said crime. It's Psychology Easy 101. So when the media reported they got this fine, they didn't report on the cease and desist order. They also did not report on this. Well, if you look down at this, jpmorgan, what they did is they, instead of using the bank that was, regulated, people could see things, they had to report stuff, they used their federally insured bank, which doesn't have to report, which doesn't have to be regulated, which they already got in trouble for, if you guys remember, in the London incident, and they were fined billion. They were gotten a lot of trouble. That was the most trouble they've probably ever been in. Well, it's pretty funny that they go ahead and they do the same thing now. So they went through and did billions, you guys. Billions of trades. And they weren't reported. They did it through their federally insured bank, which is now considered gambling at that bank, which is what they got in a huge trouble for. They now did it again at the same bank, did it unregulated, did billions of trades, and they told people that they lost track of the trade information. Now listen to this. If you did billions of trades, they were unregulated, they were unreported, you affected stock prices. You affected stock prices. They're now looking for those trades and they're not there. Those stock prices have already been affected. You're not going to correct those stock prices. Trust me, they never do. And that's part of the problem. They never correct them. They just create more synthetic IOU CNS shares that the SEC's like, no, it's no big deal. We got them monitored. But yet I already showed you that new law that they passed. They're not allowed to force them to buy shares in the CNS program. So here's the thing. jpmorgan, federally insured bank, is fined for losing track of billions of trades that were unregulated and unreported. And then you go down, you keep reading. The key outrage is embedded that these charges in this trading activity did not occur at the registered broker firm of JP Morgan. They actually occurred at their bank. It occurred at their federally insured bank, which is not allowed. Because it becomes casino banking, brings on bank runs, bank panics, giant scandals, undermines the American confidence in federally insured banks. So basically, JP Morgan doesn't give a shit, and they went ahead and did the same horrible illegal practice one more time. Now, I want you guys to read this because this is why I say Jamie Dimon is the biggest pile of shit. Under Jamie Dimon, he is breaking this law. Under Jamie Dimon, he's breaking this law. He is not reporting billions of trades, but he's affecting the stock. Listen to this as well. Under Jamie Dimon, at the helm of this federally insured bank as both chairman and CEO, JP Morgan Chase has turned on giant scandals into an art form. Here's its rap sheet. Now, I'm not going to read all these, but you guys can go ahead and I'm going to scroll down. This is all the things JP Morgan's been trying. Well, this is it just recently. These are like the bad ones, right? These are like billions, hundreds of millions, because these are awful. This is the real number over here. JP Morgan Chase, since 2000, has been fined 275 times, and they have paid $39 billion in fines. JP Morgan Chase has paid $39 billion in fines. This is the biggest criminal organization in the world. Now, just last year, it talks about how with sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, to who the bank doled out mountains of hard cash for more than a decade, which this money was used to silence his underage victim and accomplices. That doesn't talk about the 20 tons of coke, everything else that I've gone over and over and over again. Now this goes on to talk about the London experience, how they were fined how they lost $6.2 billion of depositors' money in 2012 doing this exact same thing. I'm going to say that one more time. JP Morgan, last time they did this, lost $6.2 billion of depositors' money. Can you imagine going to the bank and your money wasn't there? $6.2 billion of their own depositors' money was lost. And they did the same fucking thing. JP Morgan Chase needs to fucking be disbanded. They are fucking They're a virus to the world. Jamie Dimon, under Jamie Dimon, the crimes have just gotten higher, worse, and worse, and worse. Now, Wells Fargo abruptly terminates customers' bank accounts, says Attorney General in 16 states, demanding immediate freeze on lenders' alleged banking or debanking practices. They're just taking people's money. This is what I told you guys would start happening when these guys were getting fucked over. They were closing things out, and they still were not making enough, because what they're going to end up doing is they still need to pay these CEOs these bonuses. They're not closing banks fast enough, and deposits are leaving faster than they expected. Get the fuck out of these banks. I can't say it enough, you guys. Get the fuck out of these banks. Get out of these banks. Now, the other week I showed you guys that interview there with Powell. And Powell said that there's going to be a banking crisis, and it's going to happen between regional, small, and medium-sized banks. Well, I want you guys to look at this, because new data from the FDIC, who's, they're panicking. They're showing the information because they're like, this is a fucking problem. This is a bigger problem than what people are talking about. Jerome Powell instantly, last time he goes, this is a problem, but it's not a problem at the large banks. At the large banks, it's manageable, blah, blah, blah. Well, the numbers come in from the FDIC, and they're a lot larger. The bank exposure to commercial real estate is a lot larger than they thought. The bank exposure now to the largest banks is at $250 billion. So those top banks that were not, people are worrying about these banks in Evergrande. Oh my God, there's $20 billion in exposure. They have $250 billion in exposure this year. This was a lot higher than what they expected and what they projected, of course. And now there's sounds for alarm. Just like I told you guys, they're hiding everything, and it's getting worse. They're trying to tell you they're peeing on your leg and telling you it's rain. It's not rain. Shit is getting so out of hand, it's not even funny. These banks are going to go down, and it's going to be an insane 2024. Like I said, I don't expect this to go on to 2025. There's no possible way this can continue at the rate that it's going. The GDP debt ratio is getting out of hand. The spending is getting even worse and worse. They took the debt ceiling off. They have an unlimited cap. They basically gave themselves a black card. The second they gave themselves a black card, that was the end of it. Now, if you guys, I want you guys to go ahead and read this as well. Go ahead and read about this. But it talks about one of the things I want you guys to talk about I want you guys to come down here. It talks about, as part of his interview, Powell played down that the real threat here at the largest banking system. He says there will be banking failures, but not at the big banks, okay? Now I want you guys to listen to this, because this is very important. According to Elizabeth Warren, who is an idiot, but she's not lying right here, Powell is leading the charge behind the scenes to overturn federal regulator proposals to require the largest banks to hold largest amount of capital. The bank endgame rules that they want to be changed. The person who's trying to push for them to be changed the hardest is Powell, because he knows there's going to be such a crash, he can't stop it, and it's so fucked. He needs to change these upcoming rules, because if they stay as is, it could be the end of the banking system, because everything is a lot worse than what they're reporting and what he thought. Now, if you read, because it talks about how downplaying the large banks' risk from commercial real estate, Powell now is trying to gut the agenda for the proposed capital rule. Now, one of the things I want you guys to look at here as well that is actually very concerning. So if you guys look down at this at the bottom of the article here, It talks about the feds and their reporting. The Federal Reserve are so scared and so fucked. You know what they decided to do? They're just turning off reporting. They're just turning it off. For the first time in history, they just turn it off. When it's about to expose everything, they just turn it off. Listen to this. 13 banks. Hold on, right here. The Federal Reserve is doing something else related to growing losses at U.S. banks that is deeply concerning. It has stopped providing the aggregate quarterly data on the loan loss reserves at commercial banks, something it had previously done quarterly since 1984. So something it has done since 1984, on time, every time. It has never missed a report. Well, now that it's so fucked, if you pull up the chart, you can click here on the link. It brings you right to there. Look what they did. They straight up discontinued the data. Look at it, straight up says discontinued. They're no longer going to report it. They're just not going to tell you how bad it is. So with it being this bad, Powell knows I have to stop reporting the data, and I need to make sure that these new upcoming rules are so watered down, these banks all don't go under and everyone's fucked. So you see how fragile everything is getting. This is running on last resorts, on last resorts, on last resorts, on last resorts, on last resorts. This is not good. If you decide to just say, hey, we're just going to shut it off, that's pretty fucking scary. On top of that, when you say, we think it's manageable at the spanking crisis, but then it's actually 100 fucking and 20 billion higher than what we thought it was going to be. That's not a little bit of money. That's a lot of money. And that's just exposure at the big banks, you guys. So with that new information, remember I told you it was at 929 billion for exposure renewed this year? With this new information, that puts the number over $1 trillion. $1 trillion is set to be renewed in the United States, and no one can do it. There is a $1 trillion plus. Now it's actually a 1.1 trillion dollar barge coming straight at them. They just turned it off. They did this like a couple days ago. They just turned it off. Here you go. If you guys want to read about what Lauren's saying here, she talks about the FDIC, because here's one of the things that people, and one of the concerns for these people. If there's a large amount of bank failures and a huge hit at these giant banks that these banks can't take and the FDIC cannot take, you guys, it literally says it will take from its depositors. The banks will literally take from the depositors to cover its losses to stay ahead. These FDICs, these too big to fail ones, that's like one of their last resorts. So again, make sure, I'm going to post this one. I'm going to post this one. Read these articles. And like I said, if you have anybody in these banks, get them the fuck out. Now, one of the things I want you to show you just came out a couple days ago. Mega banks not immune to office space slowdown as stress loan percentages jump. The non-current rate for commercial real estate loans by banks with assets of $250 billion jumped up to 4.1%. And it's actually at $250 billion now. So like I said, this is a lot worse than what they thought. This talks about Bancorp. I'm going to go ahead and post this one as well for you guys. But
like I told you guys, now what you want to watch is defaults. You want to watch defaults on the side. Lender moves to foreclose on a $350 million loan. He's going to foreclose on a $350 million loan. That's a pretty fucking big hit, isn't it? A Manhattan office tower, this was just a couple days ago, just sold at a shocking 70% discount. This building was for $500 million, and it sold for $150 million. Another downtown San Francisco hotel is about to foreclose. It's back on payments. It has failed to make a payment since December. So this hotel is 5 or 6 months behind. Defaults. That is going to be the word of 2024 from here on out. From this point on out, it will be the word default. You're going to see nothing but defaults everywhere. $1 trillion in commercial real estate matures could lead to hundreds of bank failures. As Bloomberg Market Live reporter suggests, if defaults topple hundreds of U.S. banks, as it predicts, the impact on the market could be down to oil, blah, blah, blah. But as we learned, there's 186 banks that are currently at risk. There's 186 banks, and that was before the updated numbers, which probably puts us more towards 212 banks are at risk of failing. The FDIC already says they cannot afford that. There is 200 bank failures on the horizon potentially. Emergency Fed bank efforts, they ended the lending program, and as I told you guys, they're all now going to the discount window, which means, like I told you guys, it is here, it is now. You're going to pick the banks you can save. You're going to let the other ones die. You can no longer pick the banks because inflation is fucked. Inflation numbers came back, and guess what? They're higher than what they thought they were going to be. Inflation is going back up. Inflation is going back up with rates the way they are now, which means you cannot cut rates because inflation will fucking skyrocket once again. So again, there will be 0 rate cuts this year, and they're already coming up with their excuses, and they're already blaming you. Now, we'll get into that in a second here. But as you guys can see, corporate defaults are at the highest rate since the global financial crisis. And they're now 29 corporate defaults, the highest year-to-date count since 36 on record. And that was at the same time in 2009 during the great financial crisis. So we're now reaching those levels. Like I said, nobody can afford to shop at these stores. They're going down harder and harder and harder and at a way faster rate. You're having layoffs harder and harder and harder, which means less and less and less taxes. Like I said, the economy is not going to be able to do what it's going to do. Now, here is what's funny. I want you guys to listen to this. You remember I told you guys the government was giving these guys, they were going to approve $56 billion to suddenly give these construction companies enough to convert office spaces over to living spaces into, apartments. Well, in San Francisco, the first new office conversion project is actually going to get foreclosed on. So the government, they go ahead and they fund this. Well, it turns out the building is behind on payments. So even if they do the conversion, the building's going to default. They just got served their 90 days. They were served with a notice of default by its lender for $26 million. They have 90 days to come up with this. So their first project to convert this into a living space, into an apartment already went bankrupt. It's already getting foreclosed on, and what a waste of money. So the government's bailout plan is already failing. So everybody that thinks that this isn't a big deal, the government's plan to bail them out is already failing on its first try. US bank closures hit 222 in just 2 months. In the first 2 months of the year in America, banks, they closed 222 branches. Like I said, guys, you're going to see less and less and less and less banks. What the banks are going to have to do to survive is that you guys know that application where you like take a picture of your check or whatever and then it deposits it. That's what they're going to want you to start doing. They're going to want you to start taking pictures of your checks. You're not going to have branches around you. You're going to get into a lot more of that. Well, a lot of people are going to start leaving these banks and they're going to go to banks that have branches around them. So by these guys closing banks, it's going to actually become a big deal because a lot of people aren't going to say, well, you know what, fuck it, I'll never be able to go in to talk to anybody. If there's a problem ever in my account, there's nothing I could do but call customer service. How many of you like to call customer service and sit on the phone? Nobody. So people are going to continuously find these inconveniences, and inconveniences, and they're going to continuously see that they're making under 1%, and they can make 5 to 6 everywhere else. And again, they're going to keep leaving. Once again, if you are here late, they're trying to buy TikTok. The same group is trying to buy TikTok along with Ken Griffin. He needs to control information, and they're trying to do that with the New York bank deposits. They gave them $1 billion, but since that time, already at the start of the year, they've already lost $4.165 billion. $1 billion infusion is not going to save them. They're losing that a month. They're losing that a month in customer deposits. So the only reason why they would go ahead and do this bailout is, other than the warrants, again, in case they get some miracle bailout, is to use people's deposit money in New York Bancorp to buy TikTok. That is what their plan is. That is what Ken Griffin wants to do. He wants to use their deposits to buy TikTok. Spread the word. Fuck them. Now, Fidelity Investment. I told you, when you start seeing your enemies, when you start seeing these brokers firing people, downsizing, losing, guess what they're going to do? Start turning on these other guys because they need to make their money too. Fidelity Investment has begun additional layoffs. They're actually going to do a lot more than they're going to exceed what they thought they had to lay off. Because again, profits are down, and these CEOs, they still need to make their bonuses, because God forbid they don't make a bonus. One of the things I want you guys to see here, and I want you guys to listen to this is fucking insanity. The emergency lending facility was shut down a year after it began in response to the blah blah blah. Here it is. Okay, so a recent report from the Social Science Research Network noted there was 186 banks at risk of failure as we went into. The global debt, this is what I wanted to get into now. So the global debt is up to 313 trillion. The United States has the most debt, with the US alone representing 30% of all global debt. Now I want you guys to listen to this. This is why I wanted to show you guys this. According to the report, if half of the this is how risky this is how fragile this is. This is how This is where you get your MOAS. Listen to this. This is super important. According to the report, this is why I told you guys, bank run, take it out, take it out, take it out. If we do this, we win. I said this for 3 years. According to the report, if half of the uninsured depositors quickly withdrew their funds from these 186 banks, even insured depositors may face impairments as the bank would not have enough assets to make all depositors wholesome. Even insured depositors may face impairments as the bank would not have enough assets to make all depositors wholesome. Even with the FDIC kicking in, well, guess what? The FDIC can't kick in on 186 banks. So now what you're going to do is you're going to have a giant, massive ripple effect. They could not afford even 20, 30 of these banks. But yet you have 186 that if people start to figure it out and get the fuck out of these toxic fucking dumps, we're fucked. Everyone you know, get the fuck out of these trash banks. Get out of these criminal fucking banks. Get the fuck out. This is how we win. This is how you take down their criminality. How do you destroy the elite? You kill their banking system. And in the meantime, you buy hard assets. You see gold keep rising. Guess what you should probably have? Cost of land. Things that are steady, hard physical assets are always good. Crypto, when everything's failing, when all these fiats are going crazy, they'll allow them to run because they now control ETFs. You see BlackRock now owns 331,000 Bitcoins. They own 331,000 Bitcoins for their ETFs alone. So they'll never let those commodities get to a certain level. And when all these assets, the dollar, all these other fiat currencies start to collapse, people will run to these other places. Well, another place that is scary is they want you to run to these money market funds. Well, inflation picks up to 3.2%. Hotter than expected. Well, the way you have rates at right now, you're losing the battle on inflation. That means you can't lower them. Now what are you going to do? Because you're killing everything off, you're killing your economy, and you're killing off your banks. But I'm showing you right now, inflation's on the way up. If you go ahead and start doing cuts again, you're going to get hyperinflation. You're going to get inflation up the ass. It's going to skyrocket. And then what are you going to do? Cut again? Well, that makes no sense. Everyone's going to say, why the fuck did you cut in the first place? You're at that point where you can no longer fuck around. You're done because everything you've tried up to this point worked to here. It got it to here. But that's the max you could drop it. You couldn't even get it near your 2%. You couldn't even get it close. And it's already going up. So the feds are going to have to let banks crash. They're going to have to let some of this economy crash. And that's the only way that we can make some of this recovery. Some of these toxic fuckers are going to have to go down. There's too much trash, too much toxicity out in this economy. It's just numbers are getting too high. There's the pile's getting too you can't keep sweeping dust under here. It's beyond to that point. It's now going to start to reverse. Everything will start to reverse, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse until a pop comes. Now, this is why I told you I hate the government. The entire time that inflation's it's transitory. I'm Janet Yellen if you can't tell. Don't worry, inflation's it's transitory, and it's no big deal. Here comes Janet Yellen now the other day. I regret saying inflation was transitory, and it's not. Of course it's not, you moron. And this is what they do. They tell you lies, tell you lies, tell you lies to calm you down. And then when you've calmed down and 12,000 other stories is broken through, they come out and go, sorry I said that. I was wrong. Duh. The soaring price of Bitcoin could delay the Federal Reserve's plan to cut interest rates. So what they're blaming it all now is on you guys and buying crypto. Because you guys are buying crypto and because crypto's price is rising, we can't cut rates. It's your guys' fault. It's not the fact the economy's fucked to hell and we can't stop spending and printing and we're not addressing the problem at all. We're just adding more debt to it and saying whatever, they'll deal with it down the road. Nope, it's you guys buying fucking Bitcoin. The call. Thank you. I appreciate that. All super chats, I'll just go to Bigum's little baby Bigum's funds. So I really appreciate that, my friends. Diapers are expensive. So, like I said, now they're blaming you guys, and just like what always happens right before the crash, they start saying it's your guys' fault. It's your fault. You're the ones fucking the teachers' pension funds up. It's you guys. It's never us. It's all you idiots. Well, here they all know. It's you guys buying Bitcoins. They're not going to cut rates this year. I'm telling you right now. There won't be rate cuts. I've told you 1,000 times. I told you last year they're not going to cut rates this year. It's not happening. They can't do it. They're already making excuses starting now. Here they come. Now, I want you guys to understand how fucking scary this is getting. Credit card debt is officially rising faster than it was prior to 2008 financial crisis. People are paying everything off through credit cards. People are living off credit cards. Now I want you to listen to how fucking insane this is. You remember how not even a month ago I told you guys we were at 1 trillion for the first time in history? We already broke 1.1 trillion. In 1 month, we added 100 billion in credit card debt. Now it gets even crazier. It took 4 years for households to set a new record level after paying down debt borrowing in 2021. Before that, the time it took people was 12 years. So people are borrowing at the fastest rate you guys have ever seen, basically. Now it gets even crazier. Meanwhile, the average interest rate now on credit cards is at 22%. So people are borrowing. You have people borrowing at 1.1 trillion, and you have people now borrowing at 22%. Now listen to this next thing, because this is what is fucking insanity, okay? Now, this all comes together for a reason. For the first time in U.S. history, listen to this. Households are spending as much on interest payments. This means, your credit cards, your cars. They're spending as much on interest payments for non-mortgage debts as they are paying for their houses. Holy shit, that's on interest payments, you guys. For the first time in U.S. history, households are spending as much on interest payments for non-mortgage debt as they are on their mortgage. A1, I appreciate that. 1 trillion debt every 100 days. That's what I'm saying, dude. It's insanity how fast they're borrowing. Angel, I appreciate that, my friend. Thank you, thank you. Again, everything goes to little man, so I always appreciate it. But at this point, now listen to this next thing, because this all ties together into something here. So people are now spending as much on interest, just interest, not even paying down the debt, just interest for having it, as much as they are paying on their house. That's fucking unreal. And you wonder why people are paying or getting 2 jobs. It's a record number ever. This is how you literally destroy your middle class. This is how you destroy your lower class. This is how you get civil unrest, and this leads to civil war right here. Shit like this. People are going to be working 3 jobs just to pay down this fucking interest. That is the most insane thing I've ever heard. You're paying as much on your car, and I'm showing you guys, people are paying an average of $800, $900 on these car payments. Holy hell. That's a house payment. Now listen to this. Hardship withdrawals from 401 retirement accounts hit a fresh record, and they're up 30% on the year, and they're tripling pre-pandemic rates. Tripling. Listen to this. 1 in 7 Americans now has a loan against their 401k, nearly half borrowed to avoid foreclosures. Medical bills coming in as the number 2 reason. 1 in 7 people have had to go out and borrow against their 401k to avoid foreclosures. Medical bills. With household debt hitting a fresh record of $150,000, while credit cards are at 24%. People are turning to their last bit of money, retirement accounts, and credit cards. Now, I want you to understand, Vincent, thank you. I appreciate you gifting out those. Appreciate that, my friend. Now listen to this, because this is why I'm talking about all of that. So with doing this, your government, it comes up here and it talks about how the GDP and the financial outlook, this comes from the Federal Reserve of San Francisco. The Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, okay? So it's not like some guy just talking out his ass. The federal debt as a share of U.S. GDP is nearing its historical high from World War II. GDP to debt ratio is getting unsustainable. Now listen to this, because this is very important. I showed you guys your corporations, all these people are going down. You're not going to be able to collect taxes. Now, you're going to have to read. I'm going to read this, and you got to listen to this part, because, hold on. This is insanely important right here. Okay. So, according to this chart, and according to this report, and according to these guys, we're at a historical high GDP to debt. It's just not sustainable. Blah, blah, blah. We're hitting records of World War II. Well, here's the problem that they're talking about now, and why they bring this up. If you look at this chart right here, this chart is of federal debt held by the public, held by you guys, held by these corporations. It's held by the public. Well, here's the problem. If you look at their projection, they basically need us citizens to buy all of their debt. Look at their projections. They need us to buy it all. If you look currently at where we are, the public owns as much debt as they have pretty much ever in the history of the United States. We do. Foreign nations are not buying the United States debt. They're not buying treasuries. They're backing out of it. They're getting away from it. So what this is talking about is how the citizens need to be the number one buyer of debt, and that's how they project it, okay? They say it's going to be okay. Listen to this. They say it's going to be okay because we project people will leave the banks and they're going to buy our bonds, because our bonds are 6-7%, like I told you they'll be. They will be 7% by next year. And a lot of 5, 6, 7%, and a lot of these are going to go to astronomical fucking numbers. And they need him to. And if you look right here, they literally need you to, and they project you, and they plan on you doing that. Well, let me ask you something. How in the fuck are we going to buy their debt and buy their bonds when I just showed you we're living off credit cards? We're living off our 401ks. So that means no one's going to be able to buy this. No one. So they project it and they think, hey, they'll just go ahead and they'll be able to get out of this. Well, listen to this. Here comes their conclusion. With current U.S. federal debt as a share of U.S. GDP nearing its historical peak from the end of World War II, the letter finds that the prospect of these factors for the next 3 decades are less favorable. Without major reform, listen to this, without major reform to mandatory spending programs such as Social Security and Medicare, or a large tax increase, the deficit will persist and get worse. So in other words, they're basically saying, what we want to do, or what we need to do, is reform Social Security, make it worse for them. We need to reform Social Security. We need to reform Medicare. And we need to give them a larger tax increase. That is the only way to fix this. If you read this, you will notice government spending, bringing back jobs, doing anything else. That's not in their plans. None of the things that would actually fix the problem is in their plans. What's in their plans is tax increase, Social Security changes, and Medicare changes. This is how they have to staff, like I said, the government, the banks, they don't give a shit about fixing this. They're just trying to get around it for one more day. But the problem is you're not going to be able to get around this. Like I said, this Titanic, the Titanic's 1.1 trillion coming at them. They're not going to be able to get around that. Everything is too awful. And the reason I show you guys this all the time is because I need you guys. You got to get out of these banks. And I know there's people listening that have heard me say this forever, and they still have their account in banks. The same fucking bank. They want you to go over here. I'm telling you guys. Here, just look at this alone. Central banks hoard gold at the fastest pace in modern times. They're buying gold faster and harder than they ever have. Because everyone knows they need a crash, and when a crash comes and all these fiat currencies are going to hell, all these banks need to buy up gold like fucking crazy, because they're going to need to restart, they're going to need to reset, and they're going to need something new. And it's going to need to be backed by a gold type asset. That's why I tell everybody to get gold, physical gold. Meanwhile, so basically they're saying we're not on a path that's going to work. We have to start charging these guys more taxes, which is not going to fly. Well, here's the problem. U.S. debt, $34.54 trillion. You guys, just on Friday alone, we went up 60 billion. You went up 60 billion on Friday. That is insanity. They're spending at a higher rate than ever. They took their cap off. They gave themselves a black card. They're basically adding debt by 60 billion to pay for previous debt, and then they're going to charge that new debt at a higher rate. Do you understand how stupid that is? Go to bed. I know, I just heard her wake up. She's probably going to be like, get off here. Well, let's just get through the last slides, because, yeah, I don't want to. I probably woke her up, and she's pregnant, so I don't want to. But if you guys didn't know, again, going off what I just said, the U.S. deficit actually increased up to 296 billion, up from 262. Like I said, guys, we have a government that has a spending problem, and instead of solving it, their only way is to borrow more or create more at a higher interest rate. This is not going to last. This is not going to work. and they're not going to be able to bail out these banks this time. And you're starting to see more and more of these buildings go down, and it's not like it's these bigger buildings go down, you guys. This is when you start to get to your billions, your hundreds and hundreds of billions, when you start seeing these $350 million towers go down. Imagine 5 of these. Imagine 10 of these in a week. Imagine 12 of these, 25, 30 of these in a month. They're so fucked this year, you guys. It's not even funny. And one of the things I want to show you guys, because this is exactly what I want you guys to understand. Well, first of all, first-time housing affordability is the worst on record. So for anybody that parents tells you just get a job, blah, 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 it's not that bad. It's the worst it's ever been in the history of the United States. So go ahead and let them know they are wrong. But here's the lead to end this. I know it seems like they can bail this out or push this over here, but read this last thing. UBS rescue of Credit Suisse has created a brand new risk for Switzerland. The second they bail these people out, it creates new risk. It transfers it, but it creates more risk. It doesn't go away, and they can't hide it forever, and it will continuously come out and come out and come out and get harder and harder and harder to hide. So people that think that they can sweep this under the rug, they can't. If you don't believe us, just ask Switzerland. But thank you guys. I appreciate everybody who came to listen today. Everybody who donated a super chat, I truly appreciate that. Like I said, they'll all be going towards diapers for little man. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. If I get an update on little man, we're getting one here in a week or two here. We'll have another doctor visit, so I'll give you guys an update. But thank you guys for listening. Have a good day. Talk to you guys soon.